He was an action hero, a cultural icon, a martial arts legend on the cusp of superstardom. I'm Lawrence Fishburne. On July 20th, 1973, Bruce Lee died tragically at the age of 32.
For years, Bruce Lee's tomb in Seattle remained untouched. It became a sacred place, visited by thousands of fans every year who go to pay their respects to the martial arts legend. But recently, something unexpected happened. After more than 5 decades, Bruce Lee's tomb has been opened, and what was found inside left the world in absolute shock. Experts, historians, and even those closest to him were left speechless. What exactly was discovered inside, and why is this mysterious finding making headlines around the world? Stay tuned, because what you're about to hear will leave you stunned. Bruce Lee's mysterious death and burial.
I had heard that Bruce Lee died from some sort of an allergic reaction to a drug or...
Before we talk about Bruce Lee's tomb and burial, we need to first talk about how he died in the first place. The events leading up to Bruce Lee's death began in May 1973. At that time, he was in Hong Kong, working on post-production for Enter the Dragon. On May 10, 1973, Bruce Lee collapsed while dubbing lines for the movie. He was rushed to the hospital where doctors found swelling in his brain. This condition, known as cerebral edema, was treated, and Bruce Lee recovered. But this was a warning sign that something was wrong with his health. Despite this, Bruce Lee continued to work tirelessly, not realizing the seriousness of his condition. On July 20, 1973, Bruce Lee was in Hong Kong, preparing to have dinner with Raymond Chow, the producer of Enter the Dragon, and Betty Ting Pei, a Taiwanese actress. The plan was to discuss Bruce Lee's next movie, Game of Death. That afternoon, Bruce Lee complained of a headache. Betty Ting Pei gave him a painkiller called Equagesic, which contained aspirin and a muscle relaxant. Bruce Lee lay down to rest, but he never woke up. When he could not be roused, Betty Ting Pei called Raymond Chow, and they rushed Bruce Lee to the hospital. Despite efforts to revive him, Bruce Lee was pronounced dead that evening. The official cause of death was listed as death by misadventure, which means an accidental death caused by a risk that was taken voluntarily. The coroner's report stated that Bruce Lee had a hypersensitive reaction to the Equagesic tablet, which led to cerebral edema, but not everyone liked this explanation. Many people found it hard to believe that a man who was so physically fit and healthy could die so suddenly. This led to a wave of speculation and conspiracy theories about what really happened to Bruce Lee. One of the most popular theories is that Bruce Lee was murdered. Some people believed that he had enemies in the martial arts world who were jealous of his success. Others thought that he might have been targeted by triads, the Chinese organized crime groups, because of his fame and influence. There were even rumors that Bruce Lee had been cursed by a family member, or that he had angered powerful people in the entertainment industry. But there was no concrete evidence to support these claims, and the murder theory remains just that, a theory. A more medical explanation suggests that Bruce Lee may have had an underlying health condition that went undetected. The cerebral edema that caused his death could have been the result of a congenital defect, an infection, or an allergic reaction.
The mysterious death of a true action hero. Who or what killed the one, the only?
Some doctors have speculated that Bruce Lee might have had a condition called hyperhidrosis, which causes excessive sweating. This condition, combined with his intense physical activity, could have led to an electrolyte imbalance, triggering the brain swelling. Again, this is just speculation, as no definitive diagnosis was made before his death. Eventually, Bruce was buried. His first funeral was held in Hong Kong, where he had spent much of his life and career. The ceremony took place on July 25, 1973, just 5 days after his death. It was a massive event, attended by thousands of people, including celebrities, martial artists, and fans. The streets were filled with mourners who wanted to pay their respects to the man who had inspired them. Bruce Lee's body was placed in a bronze casket, and the funeral procession was a somber yet grand affair. After the funeral in Hong Kong, Bruce Lee's body was flown to Seattle, Washington in the United States. This was where Bruce Lee had lived for several years and where his family had roots. His wife, Linda Lee Cadwell, decided that Seattle would be his final resting place. The second funeral was held on July 31st, 1973, at Lakeview Cemetery in Seattle. The ceremony was more private, attended by close family members, friends, and a few select guests. It was a heartfelt goodbye to a beloved husband, father, and friend. Bruce Lee's tomb at Lakeview Cemetery is a place of pilgrimage for fans and admirers. The tombstone is made of red granite and features a simple yet elegant design. On the stone, there is a picture of Bruce Lee, along with his name in both English and Chinese characters. The inscription reads, Bruce Lee, Nov 27, 1940 to July 20th, 1973, founder of Jeet Kune Do. Below his name, there is a quote that says, "Your inspiration continues to guide us toward our personal liberation." This quote captures the essence of Bruce Lee's philosophy, which was about self-expression, adaptability, and continuous growth. But how did Bruce Lee go from a young boy in Hong Kong to a global icon whose influence can still be seen in martial arts, cinema, and philosophy today? Keep watching as we take a closer look at the journey that made him a legend. How Bruce Lee came to be the icon he is today. Bruce Lee's journey to becoming a global icon did not happen overnight. It was a path filled with hard work, struggles, and incredible determination. Today, people remember him as one of the greatest martial artists of all time, a movie star, and a philosopher whose ideas changed the way people think about fighting and life itself. But before he became this legend, he was just a small boy growing up in Hong Kong. Bruce was born on November 27, 1940, in San Francisco, California.
Born in San Francisco on November 27, 1940, Bruce Lee was raised in Hong Kong.
His real name was Lee Jun Fan, but people would later know him as Bruce Lee. His parents were from Hong Kong, and his father, Lee Hoi Chuen, was a famous Cantonese opera singer and actor. Because of his father's career, Bruce was introduced to the world of acting at a very young age. When he was just a few months old, his family moved back to Hong Kong, where Bruce grew up. As a child, Bruce Lee was very energetic and sometimes got into fights. He was not a bully, but he did not back down when someone challenged him. His parents wanted him to learn discipline and self-control, so when he was 13 years old, they enrolled him in martial arts training.
When he was 13, he was best known in the 1960s and 70s for his martial arts.
That was when he met IP Man, a legendary martial artist who taught Wing Chun Kung Fu. Bruce trained under IP Man and quickly became one of his most talented students. He was fast, strong, and had a sharp mind, which made him stand out from other students. He spent hours practicing, and his love for martial arts grew stronger every day. At the same time, Bruce continued acting. By the time he was a teenager, he had already appeared in over 20 films in Hong Kong, but acting was not his main passion yet. He loved martial arts more, and he wanted to learn as much as he could, but decided to pursue his acting career instead. In 1959, Bruce Lee arrived in Seattle, Washington. He had only $100 in his pocket, and he had to work hard to survive. He took different jobs, including washing dishes at a restaurant, while studying at Edison Technical School. Later, he enrolled at the University of Washington, where he studied philosophy. His love for martial arts never faded, and he started teaching Wing Chun Kung Fu to his friends and classmates. In 1964, Bruce Lee's life changed forever. He was invited to perform a martial arts demonstration at the Long Beach International Karate Championships. There, he showed off his incredible speed and power, performing moves that amazed the audience. He demonstrated his famous one-inch punch, where he could knock a man back several feet with just a short punch from an inch away. This performance caught the attention of Hollywood producers, and soon, Bruce was offered a role in a TV show. At that time, Hollywood did not believe that an Asian actor could be a leading star. They often cast Asian characters with white actors in makeup, and Bruce was frustrated by the discrimination. Determined to prove himself, Bruce returned to Hong Kong in 1971. To his surprise, he was already a star there because The Green Hornet had been a hit in Asia. Hong Kong movie producers were eager to work with him, and in 1971, he soon got his first lead role in The Big Boss. The movie was a massive success, breaking box office records in Hong Kong. Bruce Lee had finally found his place in the film industry. Bruce Lee's biggest achievement came in 1973 with Enter the Dragon. It was his first movie made with a Hollywood studio, and it was meant to introduce him to a worldwide audience. Sadly, Bruce never got to see its full success because he died on July 20th, 1973, just weeks before the movie was released. Bruce Lee may have left this world too soon, but his impact never faded. His legacy only grew stronger after his death.
Was a born fighter. He had talent, which is man-made, and he put it all together, and he believed the individual.
Turning him into a timeless legend whose influence can still be seen today. But what exactly did Bruce Lee leave behind, and how is his impact still felt across the world? Stick around because you're about to find out. The legacy Bruce Lee left behind after his death. Although Bruce Lee passed away at just 32 years old, his death was not the end of his influence. In fact, his impact only grew stronger in the years that followed. He was more than just a martial artist or an actor. He was a philosopher, a teacher, and a cultural icon. His ideas, movies, and fighting style changed the world. And even today, more than 50 years after his passing, his legacy continues to inspire people in many different ways. One of the biggest ways Bruce Lee left his mark was through his movies. After his death, Enter the Dragon was released in August 1973 and became a worldwide hit. It made over $350 million at the box office, proving that Bruce was not just a star, but a global phenomenon. His other films, like The Big Boss, Fist of Fury, and Way of the Dragon, continued to gain popularity. His unique fighting style, his powerful screen presence, and his incredible speed made him unforgettable. Today, his movies are still watched by millions, and many modern action stars credit Bruce Lee as their biggest inspiration. That's not all. Apart from movies, Bruce Lee also transformed the martial arts industry. His philosophy of Jeet Kune Do, which focused on efficiency, flexibility, and adapting to any situation, changed the way people approached fighting. Before Bruce, most martial arts followed strict rules and traditions, but Bruce taught that a fighter should be like water, flowing, changing, and never stuck in one form. His ideas laid the foundation for mixed martial arts, also known as MMA, which became one of the world's most popular combat sports. Fighters in the UFC and other MMA organizations often mention Bruce Lee as one of the early pioneers of their sport. Bruce Lee's impact on Hollywood and Asian representation in film was also groundbreaking. Before him, Asian actors were rarely given lead roles in Western movies. Hollywood often portrayed Asian characters as weak, villains, or sidekicks. But Bruce broke those barriers and proved that an Asian man could be a strong, heroic, and charismatic lead actor. His success opened the doors for future stars like Jackie Chan, Jet Li, Donnie Yen, and others, who followed in his footsteps. Even today, his influence can be seen in movies, TV shows, and video games that feature martial arts. Statues of Bruce Lee stand in places like Hong Kong, Los Angeles, and even Bosnia, showing that his legacy is not limited to one culture or country. Even though he is gone, Bruce Lee's influence lives on in every punch thrown, every movie watched, and every person striving to be the best version of themselves. Well, Padre Pio, an Italian priest and saint of the Catholic Church, made proclamations of Donald Trump's rise to power and the activities that would occur during his tenure on his dying bed.
But there was one customer who reminded my parents, there is a living saint. His name is Padre Pio.
These proclamations are leaving the entire world in shock as they come to pass one after the other. It is possible that Donald Trump is so important to global civilization that a revered priest who never met him made predictions about him before he ever considered politics. But how could a priest who lived in the early 20th century have predicted the things that are happening today? Join us as we explore what Padre Pio's prophecies could have meant and how they are playing out today. Padre Pio's life. Certain revelations have the power to shake the very foundations of our beliefs. During his final days, Padre Pio made a revelation that would later resonate around the four corners of what is thought to be the greatest nation in the world. His reflections on the state of the world, especially his surprising remarks about Donald Trump, have intrigued many. With everything happening today on America's political scene, an understanding of his predictions might open our eyes to what lies ahead and inform the decisions we make now. Born Francesco Forgione on May 25, 1887, in the small Italian village of Pietrelcina, Padre Pio displayed remarkable spirituality from a young age, and with support of his family, he developed a deep need for prayer and devotion. As a child, he experienced extraordinary and sometimes frightening visions, and these encounters set him apart from his peers and marked the beginning of a life connected to the divine. At the age of 15, he joined the Capuchin friars, taking the name Pio in honor of Pope Pius V, thus beginning his journey as Padre Pio. His spiritual path was characterized by fervent devotion, ascetic practices, and deep compassion for others. He was ordained a priest in 1910, and his ministry quickly became marked by extraordinary events that drew widespread attention. Among these was the stigmata.
Ever heard of stigmata? The mysterious wounds, scars, and pain that correspond to the crucifixion wounds of Jesus Christ?
Wounds resembling those of Christ's crucifixion that appeared on his body in 1918. These wounds, which he bore for 50 years, inspired both reverence and skepticism. Despite the physical and emotional pain they caused, Padre Pio regarded the stigmata as a gift, an opportunity to share in Christ's suffering for the salvation of souls. His humility and profound faith resonated with countless individuals who sought his guidance and prayers. People flocked to him for confession, spiritual direction, and healing, drawn by his reputation for holiness and miracles. But that was not all. Padre Pio displayed supernatural abilities that blew the minds of the people around him. Bilocation, being in two places at once, prophecy, and the ability to read souls. These gifts were not without controversy, and the church initially scrutinized him and restricted his public ministry. However, his sanctity and the authenticity of his experiences were eventually recognized, leading to his canonization in 2002. True to his compassionate nature, he founded the House for the Relief of Suffering, a hospital in San Giovanni Rotondo, which testifies to his enduring legacy. One of the defining aspects of Padre Pio's spiritual journey was his profound empathy for the suffering of others, and he often pointed to his own suffering as a means of atoning for humanity's sins and promoting spiritual healing. His sensitivity and compassion were evident in his tireless efforts to console the grieving and guide the lost. He would also relate certain spiritual insights received during periods of intense devotion, and these were usually interpreted as divine communications.
And I was wondering, why aren't you telling me how to talk to God? I wanted to talk to God the way Abraham talked to God.
Perhaps this is why his prophecy about Donald Trump holds significant weight. For a man who was known for many mighty miracles, insights, and prophecies, his proclamations about the highly controversial former president of America on his dying bed have a very high probability of being true. Padre Pio's predictions. Because of the widespread attention to his prophecies about Donald Trump, there's a need to go back to the pages of history to discover the predictions that Padre Pio made in his lifetime that might lend credibility to what he said about Donald Trump. Padre Pio's prophecies about future popes are among his most documented and compelling. One of the most notable prophecies was his prediction about Pope John Paul II. Long before Karol Wojtyła ascended to the papacy, Padre Pio foresaw his future role in the church. In a conversation with the young Wojtyła, who visited him in San Giovanni Rotondo in 1947, Padre Pio reportedly told him, "You will become Pope." This prophecy was realized in 1978 when Wojtyła was elected Pope John Paul II. Padre Pio also had visions concerning the papacy's future beyond his lifetime. He spoke of a pope who would lead the church in a time of unprecedented change and challenge. While specifics were not very clear, these prophecies hinted at the transformative nature of the papacies that would follow. The elections of Popes Benedict XVI and Francis both of whom have navigated significant changes and controversies within the Church, are often said to be connected to the prophecies of Padre Pio.
The prophecy of the 3 days of darkness is often associated with Saint Padre Pio.
One of Padre Pio's most alarming and discussed prophecies is the 3 days of darkness. This vision was of an apocalypse and showed a period of intense suffering and purification for humanity. According to the prophecy, a great chastisement will envelop the world, resulting in 3 days and nights of complete darkness. During this time, the only sources of light will be blessed candles, and the faithful are advised to stay indoors, pray, and seek God's mercy. Padre Pio described the days of darkness in vivid detail, emphasizing the severity and the necessity of spiritual preparedness. He warned that the air would be filled with poison, causing many to perish, and only those who remain in a state of grace, through prayer and repentance, would survive. His instructions for the faithful included closing windows and doors, refraining from looking outside, and praying the rosary continuously. This prophecy has been the subject of much speculation and interpretation. Some believe it to be a literal future event, a divine intervention to cleanse the world of sin. Others interpret it symbolically, representing a period of great moral and spiritual darkness that humanity must overcome. Despite differing views, the prophecy of the 3 days of darkness serves as a reminder of the need for spiritual vigilance and the power of faith in the face of adversity. But there was more to come, as Padre Pio's foresight was not limited to religious and apocalyptic visions. He also predicted significant technological advancements and societal changes. One of the most striking prophecies was his prediction of television.
We introduce Mr. John Baird, the inventor.
It is now 12 years since this apparatus showed the transmission of outline images to the public for the first time.
Long before it became a household staple, Padre Pio described a box that would bring both knowledge and moral decay into homes. He foresaw the dual nature of television as a tool for both education and potential corruption, highlighting its impact on family life and societal values. In the mid-20th century, when television was still in its infancy, such a prophecy seemed extraordinary. However, as television became present everywhere, Padre Pio's insights proved remarkably accurate. He warned that while television could be a source of good, it also had the potential to erode moral standards and promote materialism and a lack of character depth. His predictions emphasized the importance of discernment in media consumption and the need to safeguard spiritual and moral integrity. Padre Pio also had visions concerning the rapid technological advancements that would reshape society. He spoke of a future where technological progress would lead to both great achievements and significant moral challenges. His predictions included the rise of automation and the potential dehumanization that could accompany it. He warned of a world where people might become increasingly disconnected from their spiritual roots, relying more on machines and less on human interaction and divine guidance. Another societal change Padre Pio foresaw was the increasing secularization of the world. He predicted that as technology advanced, there would be a growing tendency to push religion and spirituality to the margins of society. This secularization, he warned, would lead to moral and spiritual crises as people sought fulfillment in material and technological pursuits rather than in their faith and relationship with God. Padre Pio's prophecies about technology and society also touched on the themes of globalization and cultural shifts. He foresaw a world becoming more interconnected, yet more fragmented, with cultures blending and clashing in unprecedented ways. He claimed that this globalization that was to happen, while offering opportunities for greater understanding and cooperation, also posed risks of cultural homogenization and the loss of traditional values and identities. The fact that these prophecies, at least 2/3 of them, are already playing out in our current society, lends credibility to the fact that what Padre Pio foresaw in relation to Donald Trump is indeed playing out before our faces. we will now explore the current realities of the U.S. political landscape and highlight everything that is happening in relation to Donald Trump as he contests for his second term as a president. The U.S. elections and Donald Trump. Donald Trump, one of the most interesting figures in modern politics, has left an unforgettable impression on American society. His influence has shaped public perception and the political landscape in ways that are both celebrated and condemned.
He was a simple priest in southern Italy, known for having supernatural gifts, including the stigmata, the same wounds Jesus received at his crucifixion. Catholics and even non-religious around the world now know him as Saint Padre Pio.
Some people say that he channeled his prophecies. I think he just went into either a higher state of consciousness or a very deep meditative state, and he was seeing things that he then would write about.
As we approach the year 2025, one of the most striking prophecies of Padre Pio is once again bringing attention to his remarkable legacy, and what he did during his last days has left everyone shocked. With his reputation for spiritual insight and foresight, Padre Pio's prophecies have always been fulfilled, leaving scholars and believers in awe, with many seeking to understand the depth of his prophetic gift. What did Padre Pio foresee? And what lasting impact does he hold towards humanity's future? Join us in this video as we reveal this last moment of Padre Pio that left everyone stunned.
And I only had a quick chance to skim through it, but it concerns Padre Pio. And Padre Pio, of course, was the saint.
The last moment of Padre Pio and what he uttered. On the final day of Padre Pio, he said something that had deep meanings. Padre Pio had lived a life of long suffering. It was said that even during his last days, Jesus appeared and spoke to him. At his final moment, he was so weak, he repeated the name Jesus Mary while clutching a rosary, and then suddenly something supernatural began to happen. It appeared he was seeing things, something no one around him could see, and he managed to say a few things before he died. What he said holds deep meaning, and many decided to look into what he said to get a better understanding. There were so many supernatural things that happened before he finally died.
These are newly released photographs of the saint Padre Pio.
And one of the most puzzling parts is what happened immediately after he died. What did Padre Pio utter? And what is this mystery surrounding his death? Keep watching to find out. To give full details of everything that happened, let's start with that day before he died. It was September 22nd, and he wanted to die on his feet, so he told his Capuchin brothers to recommend him to the Lord. Padre saw his death coming, and he was never afraid of death. He Capuchin said that during his last days. There was a picture of Saint Joseph hung near his cell, and anything he wants to pass there, he will gaze at it in silence. He was actually praying for Joseph for a happy death. The Capuchin brothers had said that everything felt different. The monastery of Our Lady Grace, the walls, the corridors was pervaded by what was described as mystical. And even during that time, no one knew he would pass away, only Padre himself. During these last days, he wrote a letter to Padre Ostino, recalling his pilgrimage days and why he wants to return home and be with God for eternity.
On March 3 in the year 1962, one of the four missionaries, Conchita, received a typed letter. The letter was sent from Italy.
He wrote, "Living here below is wearisome to me, my dear father. It is such a bitter torment to me to live in exile that I can hardly go any longer. The thought that at any moment I could lose Jesus terrifies me, in a way I cannot explain." He also spoke to his superiors and asked that they pray for him. Padre Pio insisted on celebrating Mass as he had always done. His entire life had been an offering to God, and even in his weakest state, he sought to give one final offering of the Eucharist. Padre Pio's worldwide prayer groups were present at the Mass. They carried out thanksgiving for the official approval and recognition that had recently been received from the Holy Office in Rome, and they were filled with great joy. The chapel was filled with both his closest followers and others who had journeyed to be in his presence. They knew that his health had been steadily declining, but there was something about this particular Mass that felt different. The air was thick with a mix of sadness and reverence. Padre Pio was assisted by other priests, as his frailty prevented him from standing for long periods. His voice, once booming with strength, had softened to a whisper, and his hands trembled as he raised the chalice and offered the consecration.